Hi everyone, so we are discussing one important concept now, that is how to handle multiple inputs on while submitting problems on an online judge, right? So I will start with a very simple problem statement. Suppose you are given n and followed by list of n numbers. So you need to output the squares of n numbers, right? The squares of n numbers. So for example, if your input is like 3 followed by 1, 2, 3. So if your input is like this 1, 2, 5. So you need to output 1 square, 2 square and 5 square, which is 25, right? So some of you might think that when you're taking input, you need to store all of these numbers in some variables, right? But it is not actually needed, right? So why? Because when we are going to write code, okay, and when you're going to submit this code on hacker blocks, both your input and output files are different, right? So your input comes from a separate file which is called the input file, and your output goes into a separate file called output file. So when the code judge is running, it is only going to compare your output file. It does not see what's your input, right? So your input comes from the input file and your output goes into output file. So it does not matter whether you read the entire input sequence at once and you produce the entire output sequence at once, or you do it line by line, right? So that thing does not matter, right? So if you need to do this whole thing in a single go, then you need something more. You will need an array to store lots of numbers, or you will need multiple variables to store all the inputs. But what we will do, we will just take two variables. One is n and one, what is your current number. So your first number is 1, then you will say okay, 2 is my current number, then you will say okay, 5 is my current number, and for each number you will produce one output answer. So this is your answer you printed, this is your answer you printed, and this is your answer you printed, right? So this will go in parallel. So you have this number, you have this particular answer, then you have this number, okay, you have the second number, you produce the second answer, right? So I hope you're getting what I'm trying to say. Trying to say, for each current input you produce each current answer, and that will go into your output file automatically. That we will also see how this actually happens on the console. So let us first write the code to execute this kind of a program. So you need to read n, so you declare n, then you read n by doing cin, and then what you need to do is you will read each of these numbers. So you create a variable number, and while n is greater than 0, which means we are reading at least n numbers, you do n equal to n minus 1. Okay, so this while loop will run n number of times. So you read the number by doing cin number, and you do cout number into number. Let's run this code on command line first. Okay, so let me open up the terminal, and let me also build the code. Okay, build is finished, and yes, so okay, so this is the code is now executing. Let's say input is 3 followed by the first number 1, and you can see the parallelly output. So you're reading one number and you're producing one output. Let's give another input as 4, you get 16. Another input as 5, you get 25. So you will see the numbers in this manner because both input and output are happening from the console. But this is not the case on an online judge. In an online judge, the input comes from an input file. So now let us create an input file and give that file as input to our program. So let me just write these numbers in the file. I said there are 3 numbers, 1, 2 and 5, and I will save this file as input file.txt. So you can give any file name, and when you're going to execute this program, right, you will say Okay, I'm giving this arrow, and this will accept the input file. So it means the input is now not coming from the console, but instead the input to this code will come from a input file, which is in the same directory. Now you can see it is directly producing the output 1, 4 and 25, which is the output for this file. If I change this number as 12, you will see a different output. So it says 1, 144 and 25. But it is also possible you do not want to see the output from the console. You want to see the output on a new file. So you will say, okay, create an output file .txt. So that's it. So this program is executing, which accepts numbers from this input file, and it writes these numbers into an output file. So this is exactly what goes on an online judge, right? So let me open the output file. This output file is not created by me, but this is created by the program we have written. And this output file should match with the sample output file that is already on the online judge, right? So let us have a quick look at how an online judge is going to work. So when you're making submissions on online judge like HackerBlocks, okay, so what it does is it has certain input files. So you have an input file. It also has the correct output file. Okay, and this accepts your input program. Okay, so this input program gets compiled. It gets your input file. It produces an output file. So your output, and it is going to match these two files, right? So if the correct file contains a 1 here and you produce a 2 here, you're going to get a wrong answer. Or if there is some error, if the program is not executing correctly, you will get a compilation error, right? And in some cases, if your logic is not optimized, if your code is not optimized, which means you can improve the complexity of your code, then you might get a time limit exceeded error, right? So this is also possible if you forget to add an update condition to your while loop, which may lead your while loop is running forever. For example, if you do n equals to 5 and you do while n is greater than 0 and you forget to do n minus minus, or if you forget this condition, then this loop will run forever, and in this case you will get this error, time limit exceeded, right? Okay, so I hope this idea how an online judge is going to work is clear to you, and how you can handle multiple inputs. And this is pretty easy. You just need to process each input independently, unless your inputs are related, which means first number is dependent upon second or the third number. For example, if you have a problem which says given these numbers, you want to arrange these numbers into a sorted order, in that case you need to store all of these numbers into some linear memory, right? So maybe you will say 4 5 6 3 4 5 6. In that case you need to store all of the numbers, and that can be done using arrays that we will learn in this course. So alright guys, see you in the next video.